Hey everybody, Adriana PAPALEO here with TIGI. Really excited to bring you a fun inspiration off of transition into more of a mid-length shape on my beautiful model Moeta today, which I think will be really fun. This is a fun, inspiring, simple technique that can really transform a client from something that's maybe a little bit more grown out and they want to transition into something new without, completely altering everything that's going on. So it's a simple layer pattern, introducing a nice strong fringe and then working with natural texture. We're going to be using a couple different products. One is Small Talk, and that's going to give me partings and sections control. It's going to give the cuticle a little weight and some structure to their texture. And then also the Queen for a Day thickening spray, which is one of my favorites for building a little bit of texture. First things first, we're gonna apply the Small Talk. That's gonna give me the control and the support to the cuticle and the wave. And you wanna just use your hands to distribute that product throughout the hair. Then right on top of that, we're gonna layer the Queen for a Day thickening spray. That's gonna help me get from A to Z without working hard. The products do the work for us. So to start off the cut, we're gonna keep the partings and sections really easy breezy. We wanna know where we are on the head shape, so I'm gonna start off with a center parting from forehead through to nape. Now, Moeta already has a pre-existing fringe, so what we're gonna do is use that to build more strength inside of that fringe because she's so beautiful and I really wanna be able to see her, and she's got quite a bit of hair. So by opening that fringe up a little bit, it'll make it that much easier to see her face. All right, off of that center profile, I'm gonna go ahead and just take 2 diagonal sections from where that fringe section lives around the frontal bone, just to the top of the ear, and that's gonna isolate out the entire front for the face frame as well as the fringe. 2 slight diagonal forwards to isolate the fringe from the face frame. So the key points with Moeta's fringe is we already have that isolated section, and then it's cutting it at a low elevation with a point cut for softness and over-directing everything forwards towards you. So that way you're still getting the softness, but the square line with the over-direction gives you a bit of strength, and then the increase in length towards the sides. So just to put a little bit of detail in, I want to do as much work as possible so I don't have to do much dry, if anything. I'm just adding a little bit of slicing by taking vertical sections in the fringe, elevating it up, and using those C curvatures with the scissor closing just to release a little bit of weight and let Moeta's texture come out. And you can actually see from right to left where the texture is starting to come to life, even just from that little bit of slicing. So now that we have the fringe in, we're gonna do a nice low face frame by over-directing it slightly forwards at a lower elevation and just point cutting from the pre-existing length. The great part about this is that we're working with the length that Moeta already has, so we can use that and then detail it later. Our section's already isolated. I'm not going to connect through to the fringe. I'm going to just do a low elevation and work up towards the chin with a point cut. Again, point cut for softness puts texture in while you're working wet, and then you don't have to worry when the hair is dry that will be too heavy. Tilt the head away to control your elevation, using the section that's already been put in and the pre-existing length, working up to my visual guide, which is somewhere around Moeta's jaw, but you could decide wherever you wanted that to sit. So the fringe and the face frame is done, and now we can just go right ahead and jump right into the layers. So for the layer pattern, I'm going to isolate front from back with a nice radial parting, and from there take a center vertical in the back, and I'm gonna elevate that up. What I wanna do is build strength with a bit of a square line, but I'm gonna elevate it up off of the rounds of the head. And I'm gonna follow that pattern for the whole haircut. All right, so I'm putting in the radial, and the radial sits where the hair naturally goes to the side versus to the back, which is really key when we're putting in layers. So as I said, we're using our guide to length from the actual perimeter and the pre-existing length that's already here, which is gonna be around the occipital bone. And a large part of this that's coming out is gonna be the internal, and the layers on the top will get a little bit shorter. I'm elevating it 90 off of that roundest part of the head at the occipital, and I'm point cutting from the bottom up. As I'm pivoting around, I make sure that I'm increasing my elevation so I stay 90 degrees off of the round of the head. And if you're ever unsure, you can actually use your comb, and it's that teeter-totter right in the middle. A pivot is gonna help you have softness in the shape. And I'm gonna work right around until I get to that radial, subdividing back from front, and from there I'll switch to the opposite side. So now I'm just gonna switch to the opposite side, making sure that my body position is standing behind so I can see my guide at all times, and I'm following exactly the same methodology, working on a pivot, 90 degrees off of the round of the head, which increases as I move around to the radial, and point cutting my guideline square. So now we've completed the layer pattern in the back by working that pivoting section 90 degrees off of the round ahead and point cutting square. And that is exactly what we are going to do moving forward. The only difference is that instead of pivoting all the way around, I'm gonna take a slight diagonal forward and travel through the rest of the head shape. And the distribution and elevation are gonna remain exactly the same. Moving forward, I'm gonna take a little sliver from behind, moving forward with me, so that way I always know that I have a guide. While you're working, you can absolutely feel free to put a little bit of slicing in just to release the texture more. One thing you want to be cautious of is making sure that you're not cutting into the perimeter. So pay close attention to the fact that this haircut should marry at least out to the perimeter. It shouldn't be cutting it off. So if you're following your guide because your guide came from your occipital, you therefore should be connecting through to the perimeter all the way through the haircut. So we've completed the left-hand side. Now all that's left is to complete the right, making sure that our distribution and elevation stay on target, we're following our guide, and our body position is staying engaged the whole time so that we can keep ourselves square. The biggest thing that happens is that people tend to increase their elevation because you're not engaging your body. And then we change. If we look at this nice strong square, people end up changing into something closer to a rounded layer, and you lose the strength of the cut. So just make sure that you're keeping that square engagement with your body. So now that we've finished the layer pattern, the last thing that we're gonna do is detail the perimeter. You can see the way the layers are sitting nice and square, and we used our perimeter as an option length. So even though we haven't cut it yet, we wanna make sure that it's the last thing that we do before we start to think about styling. So to detail the perimeter, we're gonna keep it super simple. I'm gonna have Moeta tilt her head forward and then gently off to the side as I work around to the sides. Gonna keep it one finger's depth and really just take off whatever needs to come off. Now, if you had a client that was going through a major change, like 3 or so inches, you definitely would wanna go through and establish the length first. But we have so many clients who are coming in looking for a transition around the length that they are, and this is a great opportunity to do that. All right, everyone, so this is the finished end result. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's been amazing to be here with you, and we'll talk soon.